Dhirendra Kumar, the CEO of Value Research. Dhirendra, thank you so much for joining us. The centre, we saw protests in Bangalore, Dhirendra, in reaction to the, the EPFO announcement on withdrawals. Now, our viewers needn't worry about any of it because all of it has been withdrawn by the government, the timeline and all of the restrictions. Now, we had, of course, in the budget session seen a tax on withdrawal on maturity. That was rolled back in April. The centre was pushing for a new withdrawal system that doesn't allow you to take out any of your money before you turn 58, or doesn't allow you to take out the money that your employer has put in. In reaction to the protests that we saw earlier this week, all of that has been rolled back and those changes will no longer happen. Dhirendra, it does seem like there is, a certain level of policy volatility happening with the PF, which is kind of, making a lot of investors nervous. If I'm investing for the next 20 years, I need to know that the rules of this investment will not change over the course of 20 years. They seem to be changing on a very, very speedy, timeline right now.
Yes, it has been unfortunate. It has been, little less planned. Looks like being done in a hurry, not well thought through the whole process. And, this is a very politically difficult thing to do. A lot of people have planned their finances, critical financial goals based on the liquidity feature which is available. If somebody is making contribution in this PF and that is his only accumulation or only saving, and his son's education is 2 years away, then he has no way to, he cannot really settle with this. So this requires, I would say that, government should make such moves after creating greater awareness, sensitizing the subscriber base, communicating the merits of this. I don't think there is any harm in actually creating awareness that don't touch your provident fund money till you badly need it or in extreme situation or needs. This is the kind of lack of, liquidity which was also there in NPS, and now they have also provided for some essential withdrawal, but in a fairly constrained way. And I think, the spirit is fine, the spirit is right. I think it should be done and executed correctly and definitely not with retrospective effect.
Well, Dhirendra, I'm going to ask you a question that a lot of investors have asked me, which is basically this. If the government over the long term is looking to lock me into my PF until the age of 58, now, for the time being, I can still pull that money out. Does it make sense for me to pull the money out, use it to pay my home loan, use it to invest in equity, use it to invest in something that possibly might give me better returns over the next 15 years?
If any investor has the time, discipline of, taking his money out and investing it with diligence, then by all means, because, PF is no great investment avenue. It is a long-term fixed income avenue which is managed by the government, and it is not known for being very rewarding. That apart, if you can actually take your money out, and it's a matter of economics, repaying or prepaying your home loan. Home loan is likely to be, or in most cases will be more expensive than your provident fund return. So on one hand you are lending cheap, and on the other hand you are borrowing expensive. So this is a fairly straightforward thing. Of course, one has to take into account, you can't sell your house, but you can take your money from your provident fund. So if you are able to build your emergency fund and other things, if your basic finances are in place, then by all means that will be a wise thing. Otherwise, provident fund is not known for its great performance. It is considered to, it is a default long-term savings plan which yields almost as much as fixed income return, and fixed income yields will go down, and over a period of time it will be much less. I really don't know about this inflation. It will be able to beat inflation over a long period of time.
Well, Dhirendra, I have another question for you. Indru has written in. He says his PF account matured 2 years ago. He extended it for 5 years. Now he wants to know what will happen if he just puts in the minimum 500 rupees and doesn't put in any more money. Will it continue to function this way? He also wants to know, in case something happens to him, will his wife be entitled to the money inside his PPF account completely tax-free, or will she have to pay tax on that money? Well, Dhirendra, one step at a time. He's extended his PPF account. You talked about PF. What about the PPF? In the same light, the fact that all of our viewers should know, neither the PF nor the PPF has a fixed interest rate. The rate that it gives you is reset by the government every year. And if we are in a lowering interest rate regime, it's likely to be reset lower and lower every year. In that case, Dhirendra, do you recommend anybody continue investing in the PPF?
Yes, in some, for some people, safety comes first and they can't assume any risk. So for them, PPF remains the most attractive destination. But in terms of return, I don't think there is anything meaningful there. Not only that, if somebody is going to experience equity or even a market-linked investment post-retirement, though I think it is very important for most investors to have it to beat inflation. But it gets very difficult for somebody to get started at 65 or 70 and you have never done anything in the past, and logically it doesn't make sense to be doing a long-term recurring deposit in a PPF account because what you get is not substantial or may not beat inflation. It will also come down over a period. It is going to be extremely disappointing over the next 10-15 years simply because despite PPF giving lower, not being able to beat inflation or just matching inflation, the absolute scale of return was fairly impressive. If you got your 9%, you felt happy. Now 9% was not beating inflation. Most investors can't really decode that. But if you will get 6%, 5% or 5.5% return over the next 10-15 years, that is not going to be very encouraging or inspiring over the next 10-15 years. So it is going to be increasingly more disappointing. And going by the real inflation, I'm not talking of for most Indian middle class, the real inflation will be very different from the consumer price index or the wholesale price index, because the big chunk of our expenditure, whether it be healthcare with age or the child's education, I'm not talking of the monthly consumables and the essential components of our consumer index. But I'm talking of the changing lifestyle, the changing need for those expenditure. The real inflation need for most investors will be much higher than what we see in these numbers, which we are deriving great comfort from. So the investors need to make their money work harder, and PPF is no way to make that make it work that hard.
Alright, so the PPF is no way to make your money work for you because there are a couple of, like Dhirendra explained, a couple of disadvantages. One is that it will not beat inflation over the long term. That interest rate might be set lower and lower. So if you think you're going to get 8.4 for the next 15 years, that's not likely to happen. And of course, if you're not investing in equity, and especially for those people who have a salary, which means that you have your PF, if you've also done the PPF, that's possibly the most inefficient thing to do with your money.